families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Families Divided TV. On this episode, Dr. Sue Cornbluth will be joining us, and she'll be speaking to grandparents who are dealing with alienation. She knows how much you suffer through this, and in this episode, she's going to give her best educational tips on how to help you open up the door for reconnection. We also will be hearing from Dr. Joshua Coleman, who will be one of our 11 presenters at our upcoming fall conference, October 13th through 15th. The title of our conference is Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and the Abuse. This conference, by far, will be the best we have ever had in all the conferences and symposiums we've ever done. And that is a fact. These presentations are going to be strong. There's so much to give you on this for both alienated family members as well as professionals. This will be a virtual international conference. Many have registered from all over the world already. And if you would like to get more info, you can go to familyaccess.info, or you can also go to our YouTube channel, and I have done a short video giving you all information and questions you've asked there on our Families Divided TV YouTube channel. We're going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday night, and it's going to go straight through until around 10 p.m. Sunday night. That's right, the whole time. So there'll be something going on all the time. So I do hope you'll be able to join us. We look forward to you registering. Again, many already have. And you'll look forward to hearing Dr. Joshua Coleman in just a bit. So we're going to be back with Dr. Sue Cornbluth and Dr. Joshua Coleman right after these messages.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Sadly, too many know the pain and trauma associated with parental and grandparent alienation. Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present an important international virtual conference on October the 13th through the 15th, 2023. The conference, entitled Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse, will feature world-renowned experts in the field of alienation. You'll join the conference event coordinator, Elaine Cobb, and moderator, Megan Hunter, as they introduce you to keynote speaker, Dr. Edward Kruk. Plus, you'll hear important presentations from Dr. Joshua Coleman, Lisa Rothfuss, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Chris Smith, Bill Eddy, Dr. Noel Hunter, Dr. Sue Cornbluth, Dr. William Burnett, Megan Hunter, and Jordan Traeger. Join the many attendees already securing their spot for the conference entitled Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. For information, visit familyaccess.info for all the details. The special conference is being hosted by Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PASCA, Parental Alienation is Child Abuse.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sue Cornbluth, and I am happy to be back with you again for another episode on helping you to move through your alienation situations. Tonight, we are going to talk about a topic that I feel is not talked about enough when it comes to alienation, and that is grandparent alienation. I did a lot of work in the field of grandparent alienation in the years of 2019 and moving forward. And the one thing that I found in working with grandparents who are separated from their grandchildren is that the road back, or the road to your grandchildren, is through your own child that you have unresolved issues with. Now, sometimes it is possible to reunite with your grandchildren on your own, but that doesn't usually happen until they're in their teenage years. So what about the early years when you really want to experience those wonderful moments with them? The other thing that I realized along the way is that you, as the grandparent, are experiencing a lot of grief and loss from going through this. I have a deep understanding for you in terms of how hurtful this is, because most of you have waited so long to become grandparents to your grandchildren, right? It's a part of life, a part of the joy of life. And for some of you, you may have had a relationship with your grandchildren already, and you've been cut off because there is an issue between you and your child. Others may have never seen their grandchildren in all of these years. Whatever the situation is, I believe that these issues do not become resolved until you make an effort to resolve whatever issue is between you and your child. After all, your children are the gatekeepers of your grandchildren. They are the people that are going to agree for you to see your grandchildren or to not see your grandchildren. A lot of people that I've talked to have also told me that they have gone through the courts to try to get their grandparents' rights to see their grandchildren. And I don't know many people that have succeeded in that way. And I think it is because your own child sees that in their own mind as an aggressive way to get to your grandchildren, which are their children. And they don't look at that very kindly. So what I want to encourage you to do today is take other methods that I believe have worked, that I have used in my own practice, to reach out to your children to try to repair the disconnection between you and them. This is the way that I have always done it, and it has brought results for many people. Now, there are some cases where this is going to work and some cases where it is not. But I want you to take these tips and take them in and think about this, because it may open your mind to a new way of coping with this. Look, separation from your grandchild can cause physical, mental, and emotional problems within your life. It's a situation where you feel as though you don't have much control over. And whenever we don't have a lot of control over a situation, it allows us to feel helpless. But I'm going to tell you tonight, you're not helpless. There are things that you can do. And the first thing that I want you to do is get in touch with your own feelings about what you are feeling being separated from your grandchildren. And if this includes you being angry at your own children, then so be it. It's okay. Let's work through that. Let's let it go. Let's acknowledge that to ourselves. You know, I'm really angry that this is happening and that they are doing this to me. It's fine, but let's not share that with them, because the minute that you share that with them, they are going to punch back at you, and they're not going to entertain anything that you say. But you have to be in a better place yourself to move forward, to make that connection with your child first before you can go forward in connecting with your grandchildren. So let's talk about now how we start that process. First of all, when a relationship is not in a great place, nobody is interested usually in talking to each other. But somebody has to make that initial call or to reach out. Now, the way that you reach out is extremely important as to how you are going to get a response. So let's start there with that. The way that you are going to get a response is if you come to them with compassion, not coming to them with more conflict. As you know from my other videos, conflict does not resolve conflict. Compassion resolves conflict, and that is what they need from you more than ever. Now, I know what you're saying right now, but what about me, Dr. Sue? I need compassion. I agree with you, but you are not going to get compassion from somebody that doesn't feel heard by you, seen by you, or validated by you. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in any kind of relationship where there is conflict. Now, I don't know what has happened between you and your child to cause this rift or conflict between the both of you. But what I do know is that there is a conflict. So I want you to ask yourself, where could this come from? What is my child angry with me about? Does somebody tell me what my child is angry about with me? Because if they've told me that, and I believe that it's not true, but I also have information about what they may be upset about. And when you can acknowledge to your child and say, I'm sorry that I made mistakes with you, and I want to show up differently than I was before in managing things with you. Some of the things that your children have issues with when you become a grandparent that I know from talking to children that won't let their parents see their children are the following. One of the main things is boundaries. Okay, they may feel that when they have children, that sometimes you as a parent who is so excited inside is actually crossing boundaries here, because maybe you're not making suggestions, or you're making suggestions and they're not hearing that you're making suggestions, and they're taking that as you telling them what to do. And they're saying to themselves, I don't need to be told what to do. I am a grown adult. I can raise my own children, and I don't need you to butt in and tell me what to do. That could be one issue as to why this is happening. And even though you don't like it, you may have to accept it. Now, let me explain what acceptance is, because a lot of people get very confused with what that is. Acceptance does not mean that you are agreeing with whatever they are saying. Acceptance means that you are hearing your children, you are hearing what they are saying, and you are telling them that you understand what they are saying. Thank you for sharing that with me, and I am going to try to make changes to do that. By the way, when you say that to them, you are not laying dormant. You are actually taking action to solve these issues between the two of you by letting go a little bit of what you think is right and they think is wrong. And that will open up a new connection between the two of you. So acceptance is really critical. Acceptance doesn't mean that you like it. It doesn't mean that you're truly on board with this. It's acknowledging where they are and saying, you know, my child just shared something with me. I have to be able to at least hear that and be willing to make a choice and maybe even look at myself that I'm not keeping up the best boundaries. Maybe you have to remind yourself sometimes that I need to make a suggestion instead of telling my child exactly what I think they should do with my grandchildren. So I know this very well because early on when I had kids, I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old now, but when my children were very young, my mother had a difficulty with keeping her boundaries when it came to seeing my children and telling me what I needed to do with my child. And I felt like I was very capable. I could raise my own children. That didn't mean that I didn't welcome her advice, but it was the way that she was delivering it to me. It was the tone that she was using when she was delivering that to me. It could be the tone that you're using. I don't know, but think about that. So my mother and I had a discussion. I had to have it several times. And I said, I want you involved in my children's lives, but I really would appreciate it if you would try to make suggestions instead of telling me what to do. And I have to say, I'm going to give my mom a lot of credit now. She has been able to do that for almost 17 years, and she makes suggestions now and doesn't tell me what to do. And it has improved our relationship. Now, me personally, I would not keep my mother from my children. That's me. But other kids and maybe your kids feel very differently about that, and they're choosing not to allow you to see your grandchildren because they are holding in so much pain in terms of what has happened between the two of you. I know a lot of times when things are not resolved from their childhood with you, that hasn't been worked through with you, or hasn't been talked about or acknowledged, that when they have their own children, they don't want their children to be subjected to the same kinds of behaviors or the way that they believed you acted towards them or whatever happened growing up. So they are so afraid that that is going to happen again, that they hold their children back from you. These are just some things that I want you to think about, because some of these things that maybe you haven't thought about until you heard tonight may be affecting your relationship with your child, that in turn is keeping you from your grandchildren. It is extremely important to look at everything that has occurred. Now, let's go back to what I was talking about before I wrap up with my tips on exactly what you can do to begin to open the door to reconnecting with your grandchildren. When you're not in a good place emotionally with yourself, when you are still carrying around that anger of not being able to be near your grandchildren, you are actually removing yourself from getting closer to your grandchildren. You can't solve any relationship holding on to anger. And I know a lot of people say, I'm over the anger, Dr. Sue. And then in the next breath, I hear them saying something negative about their child again. So I want you to self-check yourself and really say, can I forgive my child and let that anger go for them hurting me and keeping me away from my grandchildren? And if you can't, that's okay. That's a good thing. You're acknowledging it to yourself that you're not able to do that. So then I want you to make a decision to go talk to somebody. And I'm not talking about a friend, and I'm not talking about your family, because guess what? A lot of times they are going to take your side and say, you're right, you're right. but that's not getting you any closer to your grandchildren or your child, who is going to either let you have a relationship with them or not. So one thing that I really want you to focus on while you're watching this is to take inventory of really where your emotions are, because where your emotions are going to guide your journey to reconnecting. Grandparents and parents who have been able to release a lot of that anger inside of them have had a much easier time moving into the stage where they are able to send out things to their children to begin the reconciliation process. Now, I know I shared a lot of information with you tonight, and I just want to try to cover all of our bases, okay? Now, if you're reaching out to your child to make that reconnection with your grandchild, do not first reach out by telling them, I'm reaching out to you because I miss Johnny or I miss Molly, and I really want to have a connection with them again. Don't do that, please, because what your child is thinking, you're already trying to bypass me and you're trying to get me to feel guilty about having a connection with my children. That's not going to go fair for you. So it's not going to go well, and it's also not going to go fair for you. The best way to reach out to your child is in this way. I've really been giving a lot of thought to what has occurred over the years. And I really would like to begin to try to start a way back to each other. If there are things that have happened between you and I that I have not acknowledged in a way that comforts you, I am sorry. I really would like to know from you what it is that we can work on together to move this relationship forward. You have to make that connection or reconnection with your child before you can even mention seeing the grandchildren. They have to feel that they are building trust back with you, that you are validating them, that you are hearing them, that you are accepting them, and that you are listening to them. Because if they feel that you're doing that, they're going to open up their hearts to allow you to reconnect with your grandchildren as well. But in grandparent alienation, you must find a way to reconnect with your child first. That is your road. That is your first step. That is the first step on your path to getting closer to your grandchildren. When you rebuild that trust with them and they feel that they can count on you and are being heard by you, then they are going to be much more willing to reestablish a relationship with you. Now, this does not take one attempt. It takes many attempts to reconnect with your child if there is an issue between the both of you. It's not going to take one apology. It's not going to take you validating them one time. This takes consistency. Your words have to be consistent. You have to say, I'm really trying to hear you. I want to show up differently for you. I'm sorry that I didn't make suggestions and that I used a tone that was not appropriate. And if it felt to you as though I was telling you what to do, I am sorry. I'm aware of this now, and I am going to try to make a difference and a change for you. That's really what they want. They want to know that you are willing to change for them. They are not going to come to you and say, usually, I'm sorry I treated you poorly, and let's get past this and let's get together. It could happen. It happens in rare occasions. But mostly when somebody cuts you out of their life, unfortunately, it becomes your job almost to try to repair that relationship. It happens with parents that are trying to reconnect with their children, and also grandparents that are trying to reconnect with their grandchildren. It makes it a little more difficult for you, the grandparent, because you have to go through your child to get to your grandchildren. So my best tip to you is to try to put yourself in your child's shoes. Try to think about, if you were angry at your parent, what would it take for you to forgive them? That's the best way that I can think about that, and let you think about it, because we heal relationships by hearing and listening, and by not responding to what somebody says. We want to understand what somebody says before we respond to them. These relationships are very complicated. Loss is complicated. Distance hurts. And sometimes when we have distance with other people and we think our perspective is right and theirs is wrong, that doesn't help us solve conflict. What helps us solve conflict, again, is trying to see things from each perspective. That is what really does mend relationships. And when it comes to grandparent alienation, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it would help very much if you would begin the process with your child to see it from their perspective and to validate some of their feelings about what is going on, because that makes them feel seen and heard, and that is what they want from you. And when they feel seen and heard from you, then they are more willing to see and hear you. Don't give up. Do not give up. I have seen change happen in 6 months, 3 months, or maybe 3 years, but it can happen. It can happen because what is more important to you is having this conflict go on, or having it resolved, and resolving it in a way where you can have that opportunity to reconnect with your grandchildren. For me, that's what matters. I tell all my parents this, and my grandparents, what matters the most to you? Is it your pride, or is it having a relationship with the ones that you love? And for me, the answer every time is have relationships with the ones that I love, because relationships are what bring us so much joy in our lives. So if you haven't done some of the things that I've talked about tonight, try some of them. Reach out, but reach out with kindness. Don't reach out telling your story to them how much they hurt you. That's just going to push them away. Reach out with saying to them that you are willing to do what it takes to change this relationship. That is the best advice that I can give to you when you're trying to reconnect with your grandchildren. Now, before I go, there are times when you can reach out to your grandchild without your child knowing about it. The problem with that is that I find is that when you do that and you start doing it on your own, and then your child finds out about that, they become very angry about that because they feel as though you're going behind their back. But sometimes it is possible. If you have your grandchild's phone number or email, it's okay to reach out to them and say, I just want to let you know that I have been thinking about you. I hope that you're doing well, and you are always in my heart. Don't go into any details. Don't explain your story. Just say that, because it's calming and it's compassionate. Keep doing it. Do it every Friday. I know grandparents that I worked with who did that every Friday for a year and a half. And then finally one day their 16-year-old granddaughter responded back to them, thank you for contacting me. It means a lot. So you never know when they're going to change. So look, at the end of the day, I know this hurts and I'm sorry, but there is a different path that you can take to reconnection. And I hope what you learned here tonight will help you do that. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always reach out to us at www.drsueandyou.com. Stay strong, and remember, conflict does not solve conflict. Compassion heals conflict.
Hi, this is a brief intro to the talk that I'm going to be giving for the 2023 conference. The topic is the cult of one, how a troubled daughter-in-law can create family estrangements. And I'm focused on the daughter-in-law because men are in many ways very vulnerable to being manipulated by their wives, either around their masculinity, around their needs to feel separate, the fact that men often have their wives are often only their best friend, if not their only friend. Men typically don't have as strong a sense of obligation to parents as do women. So for many men, if their wives are really motivated to alienate the parents in one way or another, many, if not most men, are really very vulnerable to it. So if the wife were to say, well, we're your family now, or you need to protect my well-being, or your parents are toxic, or they're hurtful to me, or you don't realize how terrible your childhood was. There are many men who may be successful and strong in almost every other aspect of their life who would give in. And if the wife says, choose them or choose me, they end up choosing their wife. So it's a very complicated, but sadly common scenario. And also because the parents are the gatekeepers to the grandchildren, then often loving, dedicated grandparents are also cut out of their lives, which is terrible for the grandparents and terrible for the grandchildren. So in my talk, I'm going to talk about why this is common and the common mistakes that parents make when they're faced with this issue and the best strategies for going forward. Hope you can make it.
On our next episode of Families Divided TV, Dr. Stephen Lindenberg answers the question, how does alienation affect the children?